Have you ever shared a headline that just felt right? It confirms something you already believed, so you hit share without a second thought? But what if it wasn't true? We all like to think we care about facts, but let's be honest, most of us don't fact check as often as we should. And when we do see a fact check, we might still reject it. Why? That's what we're talking about today. Why we don't fact check, why we resist new information, and what we can do about it. And of course, this is American Together. So you know what that means. It's time to pinpoint truth. Step 2 of my 3 P's clarity method, or what I sometimes call a truth check.
From anyone, we stand American together.
So why don't we fact check? In this episode, we're going to look at something called psychological barriers, those mental roadblocks that make it harder for us to accept new information even when it's true. Let's start with how our brains are wired. Our brains are wired to take shortcuts. We don't naturally seek truth. We seek comfort, familiarity, and repetition. We reach for what feels known, predictable, and safe. It's why we tend to choose the same parking spot, sit in the same place at church or in class, or follow the same morning routine without even thinking about it. You can see this in the way we comfort children. We rock babies back and forth, back and forth. That gentle rhythm is calming for both of us. We sit our kids down to color when they're overstimulated. Again, that same repetitive hand motion helps settle their nervous systems. And as adults, we're not all that different. We knit or crochet, do puzzles, garden, walk the same route, or listen to the same playlists. We even rewatch the same shows, not because we don't know what happens, but because we do. Familiarity gives us a sense of control. Our brains crave that familiarity. It makes us feel safe. So when we come across information that feels familiar, even if it's not entirely true, we're much more likely to accept it without question. That brings us to the first psychological barrier, cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is what happens when we come across new information that challenges something we already believe. Our brain panics a little. It feels uncomfortable, even threatening. So instead of saying, maybe I should rethink that, our brain often says, nope, that can't be right. We reject the new information outright, even if it's true, just to avoid the discomfort. And here's the thing. It isn't usually a conscious choice. It's our brain's habit, part of a routine that feels safe because it's predictable. That predictability is comforting, even when it keeps us from rethinking old beliefs. Take a simple example. Imagine someone who's been drinking coffee every single day for 20 years. Then they see a new study claiming coffee is bad for their health. Their gut reaction? Well, that study must be wrong. Why? Because changing their belief about coffee wouldn't just mean questioning a fact. It would mean questioning something woven into their daily comfort and rhythm. That tiny moment of discomfort is cognitive dissonance in action. Want to see how your brain responds to uncomfortable information? Take Harvard's implicit bias test. It might reveal patterns you weren't even aware of. The link is in the description. Hard to admit, right? Me too. But being willing to challenge our assumptions, that's how we grow. Truth check. The next psychological barrier we're going to explore is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is our brain's way of protecting our current beliefs. Instead of weighing all the evidence, we naturally look for information that confirms what we already think. And we tend to ignore or dismiss the rest. This is why two people can watch the same debate, and walk away with completely different conclusions. We filter everything through our existing views. For example, imagine two people scrolling through the news. One strongly supports a political candidate, the other doesn't. They both see the same headline about that candidate. One clicks immediately and shares it with praise. The other scrolls right past or looks for a way to discredit it. Same headline, completely different reaction. That's confirmation bias in action. We're drawn to the things that make us feel right, not necessarily the things that help us get it right. And recognizing that pattern, that's a truth check moment. How well do you spot biased news? Try the News Literacy Project's quiz and test your ability to separate fact from spin. I took the quiz myself, and let me tell you, it really made me think. Some of the questions seem simple until you realize how much emotion, wording, or framing can influence your answer. The link is in the description. Give it a try. Sometimes what feels familiar isn't actually true. That's why we slow down and take a second look. Truth check. The last psychological barrier we're going to talk about is overconfidence bias. This is when we assume we're better at something than we really are. And when it comes to spotting misinformation, most of us think we're great at it. But studies have shown that the people who are the most confident in their ability to spot fake news are often the worst at it. That's not an insult. It's a phenomenon called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Basically, it means that the less someone knows about a topic, the more they overestimate their ability. Why? Because they don't know enough to recognize what they don't know. Their confidence is high, but their actual skill level is low. It's a trap we can all fall into because none of us can know everything about everything. Meanwhile, people who are more informed tend to be more cautious because they understand how complex the topic really is. This is where the cognitive reflection test comes in. It's designed to measure how well we resist snap judgments. Even knowing there were trick questions, I still didn't catch them all. That's how powerful our instinctive thinking can be. So yeah, I fell for it. And that's exactly the point. Even when we're trying to be careful, our brain still wants to default to what feels right. It takes conscious effort to slow down and think. Take the cognitive reflection test yourself and see how often your gut reaction is right or wrong. Again, the link is in the description. Hard to admit, right? For me too. But being willing to challenge our own beliefs, that's how we grow. Truth check. Now here's another truth check. You've probably seen this dramatic roller coaster graph floating around online. It's often labeled with phrases like the peak of I know it all, the valley of realization, and the slope of wisdom. It's catchy, but here's the truth. That's a stylized cartoon version of the effect. It's meant to be memorable, not scientific. Here's what the actual study showed. The real data is simpler. People with the least knowledge consistently overestimate themselves the most, and people with the most knowledge tend to underestimate slightly. No roller coaster dips, just a steady pattern. Here's the humbling part. Even the classic graph many of us recognize isn't the full truth. Truth check. And that's why it matters to go back to the actual study. Truth isn't always the version that spreads the fastest online. Before we wrap up this part of the episode, I want to share a quick personal story. I saw this post online claiming Obama's official portrait was being withheld by President Trump. The photo looked official, the post was short, emotional, and matched something I already believed, and That's when the warning light came on in my head and my rule kicked in. If a post triggers a strong reaction, especially when I'm tempted to share, I take a deep breath first, then I investigate. After investigating, this is what I learned. The image wasn't the official portrait. The actual one by Robert McCurdy was unveiled by President Biden in 2022. Yes, President Trump didn't host the traditional unveiling, but that was reportedly mutual, not just a refusal. Now, let me pause here and be really clear about something. My point in showing you this isn't to fuel one side or another's fire. Honestly, I don't even like thinking in terms of sides. Both Republicans and Democrats and everyone in between fall into the same traps when it comes to spin, exaggeration, or even just repeating something that isn't quite true. It happens in the little things, like this post about a portrait, something that doesn't really change our day-to-day lives. But if misinformation can spread this easily on something simple, imagine what happens when the topic is more complicated or tied to our finances, healthcare, or safety. The spin possibilities are endless. That's how fear-mongering works. And we'll talk more about that in a future episode. I want you to hear my motivation clearly. I'm not here to attack one political party or secretly brainwash the other side. That's not me. I don't vote for a party. I vote for issues. If you're curious, I do lean a little left, but what I care about most is that we all stop and think about what we value, what matters in our lives, and make decisions based on that, not just emotion fueled by misinformation. And let me add this. I don't want to tell people what to think. I hope to encourage us all to reflect on how we arrive at what we think and to make sure it's based on facts. I know we won't all want the same things or vote the same way. And that's okay. Honestly, it might make me a little uncomfortable when someone's beliefs clash with my own because I am human. But at the end of the day, I believe we're all on the same side, the human side. We all want what's good for our families, our friends, and ourselves. I can live with the discomfort, the dissonance of people voting differently than me because I know it's part of being human. And it gets a little bit easier still when I know we're all aware of the shenanigans, fear-mongering, and spin happening around us while doing our best to search for the facts. Even when something aligns with what we believe or grabs us emotionally, it still deserves to be verified, especially when it feels true. Truth check. Now, I wasn't trying to spread misinformation, but if I had shared that post just because it felt true, I might have done exactly that. That's the challenge, and that's why I try to live out what I'm sharing with you here in this channel, American Together. Pause, pinpoint truth, and then proceed with purposeful forethought. So today we explored the first big reason we don't fact check. Psychological barriers. Our brains are drawn to what feels familiar. Our emotions can overpower logic, and sometimes we just assume we already know enough. Been there, still there sometimes. But recognizing those tendencies in ourselves, that's a truth check moment. In part 2, we'll look at how our social circles and media environments shape what we believe, and why even smart, well-meaning people can fall into misinformation traps without realizing it. But for now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever realized you believed something that wasn't true? What helped you see it differently? Or did something in today's episode make you reflect on your own thought patterns? If you're willing to share, drop it in the comments. I'll be reading. Pick one of the quizzes from today's episode, whichever one felt the most uncomfortable, and take it. Don't overthink it. Just try it and notice how you feel as you go. Then come back and tell us what you noticed. Awareness is the first step. When we see how our own minds work, we're already on the path toward better understanding. Truth check. This space isn't about censoring or forcing people to agree. It's about taking time to pause, notice what's driving our reactions, and come to the conversation with openness, self-awareness, and a willingness to really listen together. I welcome different views, but I expect respect. Disagree, that's great. Explain why. Have a different angle, share it. Here, we use our differences as strengths, not weapons. And if you'd like a little extra help shaping your reply, I've linked my 3 Ps in Action comment edition in the description. It's the same process I use myself to pause, pinpoint truth, and proceed with purposeful forethought. Don't worry about reading all this here. The full list of sources is in the description and on my site, american-together.com. I share them because checking sources matters just as much as checking headlines. Hit the thumbs up and join the conversation in the comments. Together, we're not just watching, we're building something. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Remember, pause, pinpoint truth, proceed with purposeful forethought. Join the conversation. See you next time.